The void screamed. A jagged wound split across reality itself, tearing open the fabric of existence with a roar that echoed through both space and soul. The warp convulsed, vomiting forth a storm of impossible energy. Space folded, cracked, and then bled into itself, its edges searing bright as though the universe itself had been carved open with a blade made of pure madness. On Gray's Prime, the ground shook. Hive spires trembled as a psychic aftershock spread like a tidal wave, a storm that battered against every mind sensitive to the unseen tides of the Imperium. 10,000 astropaths collapsed in unison, their voices shrieking a chorus of agony before dying into silence. Blood streamed from their eyes, painting their robes red as they clutched at their skulls. They had seen something, a presence older than memory, a will sharper than any demonic hunger. Aboard the indomitable will, Lord Inquisitor Kasparian stood rigid at the viewport. His aged features were carved from stone, his scars and ritual tattoos illuminated by the dying flicker of the anomaly. His mechanical eye whirred frantically, trying to make sense of energy signatures that had no category. Behind him, sanctioned Psychos convulsed, clutching at her temples before collapsing to her knees. "What did you sense?" Kasparian asked, his voice hard, his eyes never leaving the swirling void beyond. Her lips trembled. She spoke a single word, soft, fragile, and yet heavy as a star collapsing. Ambition, ambition so vast it could devour suns. The void spat out its answer. From the wound in reality, a small craft drifted, unfamiliar in design, its black hull like a shard of night. It hovered in the upper orbit of Gray's Prime, a predator watching its prey for the first time. Inside, the Dark Lord stirred. Darth Sidious opened his eyes slowly, his breath ragged, his withered hands trembling as he looked upon the artifact now turned to ash in his palm. It had served its purpose, shattering the veil between galaxies, but its destruction sealed his fate. There would be no return. He was cast into this alien reality with no way back. And yet, he smiled. The Force was alive here, vibrant, violent, unshackled. He could feel it weaving through the galaxy, a vast psychic tapestry brimming with billions of voices. Fear, hatred, hope. Every emotion sang to him like a symphony he alone could conduct. His senses stretched outward, touching the minds of an entire world. He drank deeply of their essence and found them wanting, so easy to shape, so ripe for domination. But then, something else. A presence, distant, but blinding, like a sun burning at the center of this galaxy. It was a beacon of immense power, neither entirely alive nor dead, suspended between worlds. Sidious's smile widened beneath his hood. His voice was little more than a rasp, dry and cold as ancient parchment. How interesting! The Sith Lord leaned back in his throne-like seat, crimson light from distant stars glinting across his shadowed features. His eyes glowed faintly, alive with hunger. He had found a new galaxy, one with an empire vast and unyielding, ruled by zealots and guarded by armies forged in superstition. Yes, he whispered to the darkness, savoring each syllable. This will do nicely. The vigilant faith hung above Gray's Prime like a silver blade against the night. Its hull gleamed with wards and sacred sigils etched into the ceramite, glowing faintly blue as if whispering defiance to the void. On the command deck, Captain Leorin of the Adeptus Exorcist stood tall, helm clipped to his belt, his scarred face set in grim determination. His voice, low yet thunderous in authority, echoed across the bridge. "You are certain this is not a demon prince?" Tech Priest Dominus Atraxus shifted, mechadendrites clicking as they scrolled patterns of analysis across a glowing data slate. "The signature does not match known warp entities, Captain. It is similar, and yet alien. It draws from the Imperium, but it is not born of it." Theron's jaw tightened. His instinct screamed of danger. "And it is made planetfall." "Affirmative," Atraxus intoned. 17 minutes ago, near High Primus." The captain's expression darkened like a storm gathering. "Then the governor is already moving. Fool, he will get his people killed. Prepare drop pod. I will take a tactical squad. This intruder must be met." Far below, within the vaulted reception hall of High Primus, Governor Arcturus Valen adjusted his ornate robes with nervous fingers. The air was heavy, suffocating, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Before him stood the stranger, his form cloaked in black, hood shadowing all but a pale, withered chin. 50 troopers of the Planetary Defense Force lined the chamber, their last guns resting at their shoulders, eyes flicking nervously toward the figure who radiated something none could name, but all could feel. Valen forced a smile, though his throat was dry. His voice quavered in the vast chamber. "We welcome you to Gray's Prime, Emissary, though I admit your arrival was unexpected. The Administratum has no record of—" "You need not concern yourself with trivialities, Governor," the figure interrupted. His voice was soft, almost grandfatherly, yet it carried an edge like a blade pressed against the skin. Every syllable made the governor's flesh crawl. "I am no emissary. I am a traveler, seeking knowledge of your Imperium." Valen swallowed hard, the weight of unseen pressure settling on his chest. Then, as governor, it is my duty to inform the proper authorities. The Inquisition will certainly wish to. The hooded figure chuckled. The sound was like dry leaves in a cold wind, fragile but unsettling. The Inquisition, yes, zealots who hunt shadows of heresy. I have glimpsed them in the minds of your people. They do not concern me. Before Valen could reply, the Vox unit on his belt crackled, breaking the charred silence. "Governor Valen," came a stern voice. "This is Captain Leorin of the Adeptus Exorcists. Clear the hole immediately. The entity you harbor is of unknown origin. Comply at once." The governor paled. His knees weakened. He toned, looking to the cloaked figure with trembling lips. "My lord, I must insist." His words froze. His throat tightened as though iron fingers had closed around it. He was lifted effortlessly from the ground, feet kicking helplessly. Invisible power squeezed the breath from his lungs. "Your fear betrays you, Governor," the figure said softly. His pale hand extended lazily, controlling the unseen grip. "You think these Space Marines will save you. They will not." The great adamantium doors at the far end of the hole exploded inward with a thunderous crack. Smoke and debris filled the chamber as 5 giants strode through, silver armor etched with glowing wards, bolters raised and trained on the intruder. Their visors burned blue, cold and merciless. Darth Sidious released his grip, letting Valen collapse to the marble floor, choking. Slowly, with deliberate grace, the Dark Lord turned to face the newcomers. The glow of their armor reflected in his hooded eyes. "The Emperor's chosen," he rasped, amusement curling at the edge of his words. "Genetically forged warriors, bred to know no fey. And yet, I sense only obedience. How disappointing that your master sends soldiers, not champions." Captain Leorin stepped forward, bolt unwavering, voice like rolling thunder. "In the name of the God Emperor of mankind, identify yourself, Xenos." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then came the sound, a distinctive, terrible snap hiss. A crimson blade blazed to life, its glow bleeding across the chamber, bathing the stranger's face in scarlet. Wrinkled lips curled into a smile beneath the hood. "I am Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith, and I have come to claim this galaxy as my own." The bolters roared. The chamber detonated with fury. A storm of mass-reactive shells thundered across the marble hall, the roar of bolters shaking the very foundations. The crimson light of Sidious's blade became a blur, moving faster than any human eye could follow. He intercepted each round with impossible precision, red arcs colliding with explosive shells in blinding flashes. Shattered fragments and concussive force rippled through the air as detonations ricocheted against the walls. Several shells spun back at their origin, deflected perfectly by the Sith's unnatural speed. They struck the ceramite plate of the Astartes, exploding in bursts of fire. The exorcists staggered, their armor blackened but unbroken. "Spread out." Leorin barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Engage in close combat. His weapon is no more than a power blade. It cannot pierce Astartes plate." The squad obeyed instantly, fanning out with flawless formation, advancing as bolters barked in disciplined bursts. Around them, the governors on a guard broke in panic, scattering like frightened vermin before the tide of battle. But Sidious was already among them. He moved like smoke, graceful, fluid, unnatural. His lightsaber carved arcs of crimson in the air, leaving trails that burned after-images in the eyes of those who dared to watch. With his free hand, He unleashed a storm of lightning, blue-white energy crackling outward in a web of death. The bolt struck one of the exorcists squarely in the chest. The energy wrapped around his armor, probing, finding weaknesses at joints and seals. The mighty warrior convulsed, his bolter firing wildly as arcs of power burned through his systems. "Brother Marius is down," came the report over the squad vox. Theron's eyes narrowed. His suspicions were confirmed. "He is a psyker. Brother Cassius, deploy the null rod." At once, one of the Space Marines holstered his weapon and drew forth a slender rod of blackstone, its surface absorbing the light around it. When activated, the air rippled outward, distorting as a wave of antipsychic energy surged across the chamber. Sid Ious faltered, his lightning gutted, disrupted, the force itself slipping from his grasp. His hooded head turned slowly, golden eyes narrowing with genuine surprise. "Interesting," he hissed, his tone edged with venom. "Primitive, but effective." The exorcists seized the moment. They surged forward, bolters discarded, power blades and chains words roaring to life. Their steps echoed like thunder on the marble floor as they closed the distance, warriors bred and forged for this very moment. Sid Ious let his blade vanish, raising both hands instead. The floor trembled. With a wave of will, slabs of marble ripped free from the ground, torn up as if by an earthquake. They became weapons in his grasp, hurled with devastating force at the advancing giants. Each block struck with the weight of stone and malice combined, forcing even the transhuman warriors back a step. Yet they pressed on. The Orin himself led the charge, his power sword blazing with energy as he struck with all the fury of the Emperor's chosen. His blade came down like judgment, a blue arc crackling with disruption fields. Sid Ious reignited his saber at the last possible instant, the crimson beam clashing against the captain's weapon in a shriek of energy. Sparks exploded as the two locked, the clash of powers rippling through the chamber. The Orin snarled, his face inches from the shadowed hood. "Your corruption ends here, Witch." Sidious's voice was calm, almost amused. "Your courage is commendable, Captain, but futile." With his free hand, lightning erupted point-blank, surging directly into Theron's faceplate. The energy bypassed the ceramite, flowing through lenses and neural links straight into his skull. The captain roared, body convulsing as his systems overloaded, pain ripping through his nervous system. Sid Ious struck. A crimson arc sliced cleanly, severing Theron's arm at the elbow. The weapon clattered to the floor, still sparking with the blue glow of the power field. Blood sprayed across the marble, sizzling as it touched the Sith Lord's saber. The exorcists howled their defiance, their voices roaring through Vox systems as they charged in unison. Blades rose, chains whirred, the null rod thrust forward like a warding flame. But Sid Ious was done testing. He focused on the rod, his fury boiling. It vibrated, heating until it glowed red-hot in Cassius's grip. With a final shattering crack, it exploded, fragments embedding in the Marine's gauntlet. Freed of the null field, Sidious moved with renewed ferocity. His saber became a storm, striking with impossible precision at the vulnerable joints, necks, knees, eyes. One of Starts fell, then another, crimson light dancing as death sang through the air. And still, the Orin rose. Bleeding, broken, his neural pathways scorched by lightning, the captain drew his plasma pistol with his remaining hand. His voice was a ragged growl. "For the Emperor!" He fired. The bolt of superheated plasma streaked like a miniature sun. Even Sid Ious, with all his speed, could not fully evade. It grazed his shoulder, searing flesh and cloth, the stench of burned tissue filling the hole. He staggered, hissing, golden eyes blazing with fury. The last two exorcists struck, chains whirred revving, charging with reckless abandon. Sid Ious unleashed a telekinetic wave, hurling one across the hole into a pillar with bone-breaking force. The other managed a desperate slash, a combat knife biting deep into his thigh before the crimson blade silenced him with a single stroke. The hole fell into silence, broken only by the hum of the Sith's weapon and the ragged breath of the dying captain. Sid Ious pulled a knife from his leg with a grunt, studying his wound with clinical indifference. His gaze shifted back to the Orin, who stood defiant even as his life drained from him. "The Emperor protects," the Orin spat, blood staining his teeth. "Others will come. The Inquisition, the Grey Knights. You cannot stand against the Imperium." Sidious deactivated his saber and stepped closer, his hand brushing across the Space Marine's helm like a vulture touching its prey. His voice was silken shadow. "I have no need to destroy your Imperium, Captain, not when I can rule it." With tendrils of dark power, he plunged into Theron's mind. The captain screamed as walls of will and faith crumbled before the Sith's hunger. Images tore free, armies, rituals, the golden throne, and upon it, the Emperor, neither alive nor dead, a beacon burning in eternal stasis, worshipped as a god yet trapped forever between worlds. Sidious's eyes widened with fascination. His lips curled into a smile almost reverent. How extraordinary! He withdrew, leaving the war unbroken, his body trembling but his eyes still burning with hate. "Thank you for your service, Captain." With a casual flick of his wrist, Sidious snapped his neck. The crimson blade vanished. The chamber fell quiet once more, its marble floor slick with blood. Sidious turned to the trembling governor who had remained frozen throughout. His voice was soft, but it cut deeper than any blade. "Rise, Governor. You and I have much to discuss." The news spread quickly, whispered through Vox channels and astropathic screams alike. Captain Warren was dead, his squad destroyed. His strike cruiser, the Vigilant Faith, had gone silent. In the orbital sanctum of Hive Primus, Lord Inquisitor Kasparian received the reports with a face carved from iron. His augmentic eye whirred as it processed data feeds, casualty tallies, and psychic warnings. Behind him, his acolyte Jurgen, a former Arbite, scarred and unflinching, spoke grimly. "The entity has seized control of Governor Valen. The planetary defense forces have been ordered to stand down. The strike cruiser is unresponsive to Vox. We believe it has been boarded." Kasparian's scarred fingers drummed slowly on the edge of the tactical display. He turned to the sanctioned Psyker Eri Voss, pale but recovering from the psychic shock of the Sith's arrival. Her eyes were hollow, her voice trembling as she spoke. "My lord, his mind is a storm, but not like chaos. His presence is disciplined, controlled. It does not burn with madness. It resonates with intent. He draws power not from the warp, but from something else. Similar, yet not the same." Kasparian's lips pressed into a thin line. "Can you block him?" Voss shook her head, strands of hair clinging to sweat on her cheeks. "Not directly, but his methods resemble the sorcery of the Eldar. Perhaps their technology could counter his abilities." The Inquisitor's expression darkened, his voice heavy with disapproval. "You suggest treating with Xenos." "I suggest survival, my lord. This, Darth Sidious, is unlike anything we have faced. If he can butcher Astartes with such ease, what will he achieve with legions at his command?" Kasparian was silent for a long moment, staring down at the spires of Hive Primus glinting below. At last, he spoke, each word low and resolute. "Prepare my shuttle. If the Vigilant Faith has been taken, we must deny him its power at all costs." 3 days passed. In the grand strategium of the governor's palace, Sidious stood before a hololithic display of the Grey system. His wounds, treated by the finest medici the governor could provide, had healed swiftly, helped by the dark sorcery of the Force. Governor Valen stood at his side, face pale and damp with sweat, eyes unfocused with devotion that was no longer his own. "The orbital defenses are formidable," the governor said, gesturing nervously to the hololithic projection of defense platforms. "Lance batteries, torpedo silos, void shields. No hostile fleet has pierced Grey's prime defenses in over 3 centuries. Sidious did not answer immediately. His gaze had fixed on another point. His withered hand lifted, pointing to the knife-like silhouette in orbit. "And this vessel?" Valen swallowed. "The Vigilant Faith, my lord. A strike cruiser of the Exorcist chapter. It has remained silent since your arrival." A thin smile spread beneath the Sith's hood. "Not silent, Governor. Merely, under new management. The crew required persuasion. They serve me now." The governor blanched. "But Astartes vessels are sanctified, their crews oath-bound. They would rather die than—" "All beings face death eventually," Sidious interrupted, his tone patient, almost indulgent. "I merely showed them the better choice. Their loyalty is mine now." He turned away from the display, his eyes narrowing. Now, tell me of this Inquisitor who circles your world like a carrion bird, the one who watches, yet does not strike. Lord Inquisitor Kasparian, Valen stammered. He arrived days before you, investigating rumors of heresy in the Underhive. He remains in orbit. Ah, chaos. Sidious mused softly, tasting the word like a fine wine. Yes, I have gleaned much of this force from the minds of your people. Emotion given flesh, fear and desire incarnate, a crude reflection of the dark side, yet useful. Before he could continue, a harried officer stumbled into the chamber, uniform stained with sweat and grime. He dropped to one knee before the throne-like dais where Sidious now presided. My lord, Governor, the Underhive reports multiple impacts. Drop pods, assault craft, at least 30 hostile signatures confirmed. Sidious's hood tilted slightly. His voice was a dry whisper that carried to every corner of the chamber. It seems your Inquisitor has decided to act. Beneath the choking skies of the Underhive, Lord Inquisitor Kasparian led his kill team through labyrinthine corridors of rust and decay. The air was thick with promethium fumes, every shadow whispering of ambush. Glow globes from the Tempestus signs lit their path in pale arcs, while the Inquisitor's power axe crackled with contained storm of disruptive energy. Life signs ahead, Sergeant Vex reported, eyes flicking over the auspex. 30 meters. Junction 7 Gamma. Kasparian raised a gauntleted hand. Jurgen, take point. Sister Malia, cover the flank. Ready weapons. Jurgen moved forward with predatory precision, his shotgun sweeping across the darkness. Then he froze. His voice came low, steady, yet tinged with unease. 3 troopers. PDF uniforms. But they are not moving, just standing. Kasparian advanced, his eye implants focusing on the figures. 3 planetary defense soldiers stood motionless, last guns at rest. Their eyes were open, but vacant, staring into nothing. Domination, Sister Malia murmured, her crimson armor glinting as a hand tightened on her bolter. Like sorcerers of chaos, but cleaner, stronger. The Inquisitor stepped closer, waving his hand before a soldier's dead stare. No struggle, no resistance, complete subjugation. As if answering his words, the troopers jerked to life, movement stiff, puppet-like. They raised their weapons. The corridor blazed with last fire. The signs responded instantly, hellguns roaring, the beams cutting through armor and flesh. The first wave fell, but more poured from the shadows, jerking, twitching, moving with unnatural coordination. Fall back to position Alpha. Kasparian ordered, we are not here to waste time. We must reach the central transit hub. The team moved with discipline, laying suppressive fire as they retreated. Sister Malia unleashed gouts of fire from her flamer, walls of searing promethium halting the thralls long enough to regroup. This is unprecedented, Jurgen growled, ejecting a spent shell. If he can command minds at this scale, he could enslave the entire PDF. Kasparian shook his head sharply. No, there are limits. These are all from the same precinct. He cannot scatter his will across worlds, not yet. Then we exploit that weakness, Malia answered, teeth bared as a flamer belched again. Exactly, which means we must reach the governor's palace. That is his nest, his throne. Before more could be said, a psychic scream tore through the air like a blade. The Scions collapsed to their knees, clutching their heads. Even Kasparian staggered, his teeth clenched in pain. ARA Voss gasped, blood streaming from her nose. He knows we are here, she choked. He is searching for us. Kasparian steadied himself, fury hardening his features. Then we have no time. Move. Deploy psych-out grenades at 10-meter intervals. If we cannot blind him, we will at least make him stumble. As they pressed on, shadows thickened. The hive itself seemed to twist against them. And far above, in his stolen palace, the Dark Lord sat cross-legged in meditation. His mind stretched across the hive, tracing every flicker of resistance. A worthy opponent, Sidious murmured, but still only another piece on the board. The hive groaned. Explosions from the vigilant faith tore through the Underhive's ancient bones, collapsing entire sectors into rubble. Hab blocks fell like rotten teeth, choking transit routes and herding Kasparian's team exactly where Sid'Aoyu's wanted them. Dust choked the kill team as they staggered through maintenance shafts. Sister Malia's crimson armor was scorched and blackened, yet her eyes still burned with zeal. Urigen's shotgun barked rhythmically, each blast echoing like judgment. Eorevos stumbled but pressed forward, the veins in her face glowing faintly with psychic strain. At last, they emerged into a cavernous chamber. Massive filtration tanks loomed like metallic giants, pipes crisscrossing overhead. The air stank of rust and chemical tang, water dripping in endless rhythm. Kasparian was about to signal the advance when the sound cut through the chamber. A hiss, a snap, red light flayed, casting everything in a bloody glow. Darth Sidious stepped into view, his lightsaber humming, its crimson reflection cooling across the rippling water. His hood shadowed his withered face, yet his eyes burned gold with hunger. Inquisitor Kasparian, he rasped, voice dripping mockery. Your persistence is admirable. Futile, but admirable. Kasparian raised his power axe, its disruption field growling with caged fury. His voice rang across the chamber, heavy with imperial authority. In the name of the God Emperor of mankind, I declare you excommunicate traitors. Your sentence is death. Sid'Aoyu's laughed. It echoed unnaturally, bouncing from metal walls like whispers of madness. Your emperor is a corpse on a throne, sustained by the sacrifice of thousands every day. What authority does such a husk possess? He cannot protect his Imperium from chaos. How will he protect it from me? Open fire, Kasparian ordered coldly. The chamber exploded into violence. Hellguns shrieked. Bolters roared. Plasma hissed. A storm of fire converged upon the Sith Lord. Yet Sid'Aoyu's moved like a phantom, his blade a crimson blur. Energy bolts ricocheted. Scions fell to their own fire, screams echoing as armor blackened. Sister Malia charged, bolter thundering. For the Emperor, she cried, her voice a war chant, a wall of faith. Sid'Aoyu's gestured lazily. One of the water tanks ruptured with a deafening crack, unleashing a tidal wave. The torrent engulfed the battle sister, hurling her against the far wall. Her armor groaned under the impact, water cascading across the floor as she struggled to rise. Urigen's shotgun roared, solid slugs tearing the air. Sid'Aoyu's was forced to weave and shift, one shot grazing his shoulder in a spray of blood. He snarled, golden eyes narrowing. Kasparian seized the moment. His power axe blazed as he charged, its field shrieking when it met the crimson blade. Sparks erupted. The two locked inches apart, faces twisted in defiance. You are strong, Inquisitor, Sid'Aoyu's hissed. Your faith gives you power. But faith is nothing more than passion, and passion belongs to the dark side. He raised his hand. Lightning erupted, a blinding torrent that engulfed Kasparian. His refractor field flayed, then collapsed in a shower of sparks. The Inquisitor screamed as energy ripped through his armor, hurling him across the chamber. Aravos! Urigen shouted. The Psyker staggered forward, her voice trembling yet resolute. Her hands traced sigils in the air, a shimmering barrier forming between the fallen Inquisitor and the advancing Sith. Bound by duty, warded by will, protected by the Emperor's light, she chanted. A psychic shield flared, silver and fragile, but defiant. Sid'Aoyu's paused, head tilting, studying the barrier like a predator considering a new prey. Remarkable. In my galaxy, you might have been Jedi, perhaps even Sith. He extended his hands, not striking, but probing. His will pressed against the barrier, searching for weakness. Aravos gasped, blood dripping from her nose, her body trembling. He is not using the warp, she cried. His power comes from something else, beyond the Imperium. Correct, Sid'Aoyu's whispered, lips curling. The Force binds all life. Your warp is but a crude echo. What I wield is its true discipline. With a sudden wrench, he tore through the barrier. The psychic backlash ripped through Vos like a blade. She screamed as blood poured from her eyes and ears before collapsing in ruin. Urigen fired again, slug after slug, his face grim. But Sid'Aoyu's raised his hand. One round froze in the air, spinning inches from his face. The Sith let it drop with disdain. "Enough," he said, voice heavy with dark finality. "You have fought well. Now you will serve." The remaining Scions jerked, eyes going vacant. Their weapons turned on Jurgen, last fire searing the air. He dove behind cover, teeth gritted as his own allies were puppeted against him. Kasparian staggered to his feet, armor cracked, smoke rising from his chest. "We will never serve you," which he spat, blood flecking his lips. "You misunderstand," Sidious replied, advancing with slow, deliberate steps. "I do not require your willing service, only obedience. And obedience," he raised his hand, "is inevitable." The red blade rose, but before it could fall, the ceiling exploded. A thunderous crash rained stone and steel into the chamber. Through smoke and fire descended giants clad in silver. Space Marines, their armor adorned with the awards of the Exorcist chapter. "For the fallen," roared their leader, bolt pistol blazing. Sidious snarled, his blade weaving, deflecting the explosive shells. His voice echoed with venom. "More of Theron's brothers. How inconvenient." The silver-armored Titans formed a protective wall around the wounded Inquisitor, their weapons ready, their voices united. "I am Sergeant Titus of the Exorcist 4th Company," their leader declared. "We receive Captain Theron's final words. We are here to purge this world of your taint. Heretic." Sidious's gaze flicked from them to Kasparian, his mind already calculating. His golden eyes narrowed, then softened into cold amusement. A strategic withdrawal seems prudent. With a sweep of his hand, the Sith Lord collapsed another section of the ceiling, dust and debris filling the chamber. By the time the Exorcist cleared the way, the Dark Lord was gone, vanished into the hive's veins. The chamber rang only with the ragged breath of survivors. Kasparian groaned, pushing himself up with Titus's aid. His armor smoked, but his eyes blazed with purpose. "This creature bleeds," the Inquisitor rasped. "He can be wounded. He can be forced to retreat. He is not invincible." He turned to Voss's lifeless form, grief flashing for only a moment. "Her sacrifice has shown us the truth. He does not draw from the warp. He is something else entirely." Titus's eyes narrowed. "Then we find his weakness, and we end him." Kasparian's gaze hardened. "We will need the Mechanicus." Tech Priest Atraxus studied his energy signature. "If anyone has an answer, it will be him." And so, blooded but unbroken, they turned toward the eastern hive, where the machine priests waited, and where a trap will be forged for the Dark Lord of the Sith. The forge halls of hive tarsi burned with holy light. Cathedrals of steel and cogwork thrummed with energy. Conduits humming as reactor cores powered a weapon never before tested. The Adeptus Mechanicus had toiled without sleep, their mechadendrites weaving, their prayers rising to the machine god as they worked beside Kasparian and the Exorcists. At the chamber's center stood the construct, a cage of blackstone pylons, ancient Necron technology, refined and sanctified with Imperial blessings. Each obelisk pulsed with runes, radiating a field that warped the very air. This was no ordinary device. This was a force disruptor, designed from fragments of Xenotech and blessed by 100 tech priests. Kasparian stood at its heart, armor-scarred, axe still stained with Sith blood. Around him, Sergeant Titus and his warriors waited, bolters ready, blades gleaming. Even Governor Valen, still trembling under Sidious's thrall, had been lured into the hole, bait for the trap. The Inquisitor's voice was a growl. "He will come. His arrogance will not allow him to ignore such a challenge. Today, either we end him, or we die ensuring he is bound." The air grew cold. The glow globes flickered. Shadows stretched unnaturally long across the steel walls. And then he was there. Darth Sidious entered with the silence of a shadow. His hood was drawn, his crimson blade humming softly in his grasp. Golden eyes swept the chamber, drinking in the obelisks, the soldiers, the Inquisitor standing defiant. "So, you conspire with machines and Xeno's relics," he rasped, voice laced with contempt. "How? Desperate." Kasparian raised his axe. No desperation, only duty. The trap sprang. The pylons ignited, beams of invisible force converging on Sidious. He staggered as the force slipped from his grasp, his lightning dying in his fingertips, his senses clouding as if a veil had been drawn. For the first time since his arrival, the Sith Lord felt something alien, helplessness. His snarl echoed, rage boiling across his features. "You dare!" "Fire!" Kasparian roared. Bolters thundered. Plasma seared. The chamber shook with the fury of the Emperor's wrath. Sid Ious deflected what he could, but his speed was diminished, his reflexes dulled. Rounds grazed his limbs, explosions tore his robes, blood sprayed across the steel floor. Still, he endured. Still, he fought. With a guttural roar, he hurled himself forward, blades spinning in arcs of crimson. 2 exorcists fell, their bodies severed at the joints, their armor hissing with molten edges. Sergeant Titus struck back, his power blade clashing with the Sith saber. The duel became a storm of sparks, every strike shaking the chamber. Kasparian advanced, his axe blazing with disruptive energy. Together, Man and Astartes pressed the Sith back, driving him toward the disruptor's field. Sid Ious howled, fury and fear twisting across his ruined face. "You think your Emperor protects you," he spat, lightning sputtering against the cage's suppression. "He is no god. He is a prisoner, chained to a throne. I have seen him. He is broken." Kasparian's voice cut like steel. "Broken or not, he is our shield, and you will never rule his Imperium." With a final heave, Titus plunged his blade through Sidious's shoulder, pinning him against the Blackstone field. The Sith shrieked, his scream rattling steel beams, his power lashing against invisible walls. Kasparian stepped close, his eyes burning with faith. "For Captain Leorin, for A.R. Avos, for every soul you have enslaved." He raised his axe high. Sidious's golden eyes locked onto his, filled not with fear, but with hunger. Even in defeat, he reached with tendrils of power, clawing at Kasparian's mind. "You cannot kill me," he hissed. "Strike me down, and my shadow will endure. I will live in your fear, your anger, your passion. I will never die." For a moment, silence. Then Kasparian's answer came, low and final. "Then you will be bound." The axe struck the Blackstone control node. Light erupted. The pylons screamed, their fields collapsing inward. A vortex of psychic suppression engulfed the chamber, swallowing Sid Ious whole. His scream became a howl across realities, his body burning away into fragments of shadow. With one last, hate-filled glare, the Dark Lord of the Sith was gone. The chamber fell still. Smoke drifted. Sparks hissed. The disruptor's glow faded into silence. Sergeant Titus sank to one knee, armor cracked and bleeding, his voice hoarse. "Is it done?" Kasparian's gaze lingered on the empty space where the Sith had stood. Slowly, he lowered his axe. "No, not done. Contained. For now." He turned toward the Mechanicus priests, their mechanical faces inscrutable. "Guard these pylons with your lives. Seal this hall. None must approach. Not until the Grey Knights arrive to sanctify it." The forge halls echoed with solemn agreement. Kasparian allowed himself one breath of relief. Just one. Then he turned back to his warriors, his voice cold and resolute. "Remember this day. We face an enemy beyond chaos, beyond reason. And though he bleeds, though he screams, he endures. He will wait. He will hunger. And he will try again." His eyes narrowed, steel hard. And when he does, the Imperium must be ready. The silence that followed was heavy, eternal. Above the hive, Gray's prime turned slowly beneath the light of distant stars. Somewhere in the warp, perhaps, or beyond even that, a shadow still whispered. And its hunger had not ended.